Hey guys, this is KSP of Tape, and today you join me for episode 50 of KSP Road to Exploration. Yes, episode 50. It is crazy that there has been this many. But we start with another little test of the Duna base. Now this, I think, will be the final test of this before I actually launch it. And I've set it up slightly differently. I've just changed a few parachute settings around and changed the fuel tank slightly. You'll notice that they're no longer on the outside, and that's just mostly aesthetic, but also slightly better balancing, and makes it much easier to launch. But anyway, we separate from the booster and go into 4 times speed so that we can see it landing. There are more parachutes this time, mostly just more drogue chutes, and it'll land slightly more gently. And we'll still need engines, especially on Duna, but they have more than enough thrust and delta V to land, and you can see that I'm using them probably a little bit too gently here to slow down, and we do lose a couple of landing legs. It does land reasonably safely, but I would quite like those landing legs. But I think with a little bit, more precision and a little bit more aggression on the throttle and the lower gravity of Duna, this should work. So yes, that is that, all set up. So now, let's launch it, huh? So we've packed it into a configuration in which it can be launched atop a Pulsar Y, the biggest rocket in our fleet yet. Well, currently. I may build a bigger one at some point, but right now this is doing a very good job of launching pretty massive payloads. It would be nice to have a slightly bigger one. Obviously the easy thing to do is just to kind of build like a Falcon Heavy type situation, but because my rockets are reusable, and I don't use any mods that help me reuse rockets, that means it kind of has to be this sort of thing. But maybe I'll install one that helps me reuse rockets. But anyway, yes, the 5 giant vector engines pushing this on into orbit are doing a very good job and are about to burn out so that we can switch over to our second stage to an even bigger engine, which is actually probably one of the more realistic vacuum engines in KSP, because of course it has a very large engine bell. But yes, the fairing is pretty massive, but I have packed the base up a little bit so that I could launch it all in one launch, because I didn't want to do a shit ton more launches, because the whole of this episode, once again, is building. That will abate next episode, don't worry. Sort of. I mean, but yeah, anyway. So here we are with the base, all packed up, and you'll see how that works in a bit. But yeah, we're going to push ourselves into orbit just in time to grab the booster, pull the air brakes to stop us, kind of totally screwing up, deactivate a bunch of the engines, activate the fuel, and slow down nicely. It does land pretty well. We pull the chutes, and it's looking rather beautiful. This, of course, does have to land on one engine, even though it has so many parachutes, because it is so heavy. But that's fine. It doesn't need that much fuel. It uses about as much fuel to reuse as any other rocket, much smaller rockets, which is really good, because it has very efficient engines and enough parachutes and air brakes. Yes. Anyway, back in orbit, we need to tweak our orbit a little, because we were a little bit rushed getting to orbit. Because, well, we wanted to catch that booster before we lost 100 grand. But that went well. And yes, now we're in a better orbit, 80-ish, 85-ish kilometer orbit. We get rid of this booster. We're going to want to take that back to land, so we do the quick deorbit burn. And just keep doing that until we've got a good periapsis, which it looks like we do. And then we're going to just fire through the atmosphere, keep our engines firing, because we have a bunch of extra fuel and we'd like to land as close to the KSC as possible, because that way we get the most money, and also it's awesome. And yeah, we landed reasonably close, about 20 kilometers offshore, and recovered that. So yeah, not bad. Anyway, now we need to unpack this base. You'll notice that 2 of the modules are below 2 more of the modules, so it's flat enough to go into the fairing. So using the RCS I strapped to it, which will be decoupled, we're going to move it into the right place. And we'll see this at 4 times time accelerate for one of them. It does take a while, but I thought I'd show you how kind of tricky this was. It wasn't so much tricky, just a little bit slow, but at 4 times it's not so bad. But yeah, this is just going to flip around and attach on there. The other one I'll obviously just cut out so that you can just see it docking. But yeah, this is the, I want to say lab module. I think it's the lab. And yeah, this is one of the ones that deploys, so it looks quite small, but it gets much bigger. And on the end, there's an airlock, so you can easily get in and out of the vehicle on the ground without having to do a bunch of RCS stuff, which will be important on Duna because it has a reasonably high gravity, which means that the RCS pack struggles to lift Kerbals. And there are ladders on this, but it is just easier to have a ground level door. But yeah, this will just move on there. And when we decouple these, one of the modules with the RCS and the batteries will just be kind of pointless, but the other one with the probe and the antenna will actually be another communications satellite, which is good. So there is no waste in my space program, except the random batteries and RCS that will be floating around. And there's a lot of waste in my space program, like the fairings and all of the debris in orbit. Anyway, that docks on and we just nip off the second module, which is, I think, a habitation module? A food module? I think it's the food growing module. Yeah, I've sent this out there. It probably won't be active in the first mission, but probably the second mission it will. And we just dock this on there after a bit of maneuvering. And there we go. The base is ready. And now we just need to get rid of those little maneuvering pods on the side, because those are no longer useful. And they will become satellites, which will help us communicate even more. And we'll get rid of these little metal plates which everything was attached to, and retract the landing gear, and put it into an orientation where it can get power, because we want it to be alive when we next come up here. But yes, that is not everything that we need on the base. We also are going to need a separate module for life support. The base carries a little life support and a thing for growing food, which is mostly just an experiment in the first mission, but it will need somewhere to store all of that life support. So that is what is atop this rocket. A Pulsar X, of course, the single-staged orbit, 30-ton type lifter, which is using old engines, which makes it very cheap, but limits its lifting capability a little bit. But it's a relatively light payload, so it has so this is the full reusability kind of variant with all the air brakes and Verna thrusters, which makes it just a little bit easier to land more precisely, which makes things a little cheaper. And we're just going to get on up there and attach this to the base. This will just sit kind of near the base on Duna, and will be attached using Kerbal attachment system pipes. You can get a good look at it now. It's pretty much just a bunch of life support and probes and things attached to a small lander, which will, I think, land almost entirely propulsively, except it does have some drogue chutes to help it slow down in the atmosphere. But it will land propulsively, because it will need to land at the base. So it's mostly going to do that, and because it's quite a simple vehicle, that shouldn't be too difficult. It does have some big docking ports on it, but those mostly, one of them decouples, but and that because it needs a drive section attached to the bottom of it for getting it to Duna. But then we don't want to carry that life support module, we don't want to carry that docking port to the ground because it's covering the engine. So anyway, yes, we've now separated from the rocket, have our close encounter, and we're going to get out there, slow down, and dock. The maneuvering in was fairly boring. It went very well, which means it was very boring. And then we're just going to maneuver in on to the base. The docking port on the bottom of the base also decouples, because that would be kind of annoying having a spare docking port just hanging around on the bottom. But yeah, so this will attach to that, and a drive system will attach to the bottom of this for pushing it out to Duna, and then it will all get to Duna and just sort of land, hopefully. Because if not, even if we can't actually put the base on Duna, it would still be a successful mission. But I'd like to keep some people on Duna, and I really want to use that garage, which we'll see right now. Because I've been working on a small little buggy for Duna. I know I said I was going to send out a big rover like I have on the moon, but not this mission. It is actually annoyingly not within the scope of this mission. But that will be next time for longer duration missions. But this is my first rendition of a fairly small rover for short-range moving Kerbals around. It is also probe-controlled, which means it can obviously do things without Kerbals. You could use Kerbal attachment system to attach science materials to it. But yeah, anyway, we're just going to try and get it into the cargo bay now, the garage now, but we can't because the wheels are too wide. And that's kind of annoying, so I'm going to have to build a slightly different one. And even with ramming it, space cannot be broken. Peter, what were you thinking? You can see the solar panels are static because Duna has an atmosphere and would just break the solar panels. So anyway, I developed a new one with slightly closer in wheels, and this does fit in there, but I've realized I've left a bunch of old landing legs on there that don't need to be there anymore, which is really annoying because those are stopping me getting in because they stick up through the floor. And for a bit of trying, I do manage to get it in, as you can see, but I will have to at some point when I get to the Duna base, use the Kerbal Engineer system to take off those landing legs because they're kind of annoying. But yes, I eventually do get it in, and it fits in the base, except for the antenna, obviously, which it needs because it's probe controlled. But you can see it in there, and yeah, it's pretty good. So this will be just a nice little simple kind of utility rover for us. But anyway, that needs to go to space now because, well, it's not just that. There's a bunch of very important payloads on this rocket, which are basically just kind of the secondary things. There's 4 things going to Duna. There is obviously the Concordia, the big Duna spacecraft for taking all of the Kerbals there, and the landers, and most of the life support and equipment, which will be kind of the lifeboat, the ferry that ferries Kerbals out and will come back. and pick up more Kerbals and take them there in the next transfer window, which will be very useful. And then there is the big station which is heading out there, which we built a while ago, which is just a resource station that we may need on Duna. There is obviously the base, and then there is a bunch of utility equipment. There's some communication satellites to improve our communications network. There is an ore scanner so we can choose where to land the base without necessarily knowing the best place, without having to scan the surface for ore, because we're not mining this mission. That'll be next mission. And obviously the rover, because Curls need to drive around a bit. You can see the satellites on top, and below it the nice little metal case with the with the rover in it, because I'm obviously going to need to land it somehow. So I built a metal frame with a heat shield and some parachutes and engines, and which are landing the first stage here, as you can see. But yeah, so that's going to basically land the rover on Duna. It's like kind of like the Curiosity rover, I guess. You know how that lands? It does parachutes, and then this little frame thing drops the heat shield and then fires up the engine. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, you can see it just getting into orbit now. And the coupling, it has a little drive stage on the back, just a few nuclear engines with a little bit of fuel. It gives enough thrust to weight ratio that it won't annoy me, but enough delta V that we can get there easily. And yeah, that should be pretty useful. And then we've just got to land this second stage, and we get really close to the KSC this time. I'm within 10 kilometers, which is quite nice. But yeah, I think that package will really help. It'll obviously find where to land the base, it'll improve the communications network, and that rover will be useful, if not quite as cool as the one I have on the moon right now. So yes, that is nicely in the ocean. Now, another launch. This is a Starlight 1 loaded up with some very important equipment headed for the Concordia. Yes, the Concordia is completed, but there is some equipment it needs. Namely, a couple of science packages that I can attach to the landers kind of modularly, so I can take them on missions or not, depending on if I want them or not. And also a bunch of boxes of kind of things like drills and spanners and spare solar panels, and thank you to the person who said take spare solar panels. I almost didn't, but yeah, I did put them in the box as well, and a bunch of stuff for the base, like those big kind of pylons you can put on the ground to help attach things, and just lots of stuff like that. And a bunch of RCS propellant, and just all of the things I could possibly need on Duna. And yeah, that's what this is. So hopefully this will be quite useful. We're just gonna try and get to orbit before the first stage goes towards the ground, but we might have to jump back and land it and then finish off the orbital burn, like I used to have to do all of the time before I got better at doing this. But yeah, you can see the Concordia just flying past there, about 5 kilometers away. So we're pretty close, but we are lagging behind it, so we'll have to catch it up, which will make this quite hard, but hopefully we'll be close enough we can just go right there. So anyway, I need to land this stage very quickly, so you can see here how quickly I land it. I don't pull the parachutes, and I don't fire the engines until 1.5 kilometers, so that I slow down literally just in time to pull the parachutes and land on the ocean within about 100 meters of margin, which is kind of a difficult thing to do, but was really necessary because the payload isn't actually in orbit right now. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, so I just left that in. A speedy landing, as it's known scientifically. Anyway, so yes, now we need to rush into orbit. But we're actually pretty close to the Concordia, so we can actually just burn right for it now. Not very efficient or very smart, but not very frustrating either, and that's quite important. Obviously, first we need to push ourselves into orbit a little bit, because we're not quite in orbit yet, but that's fine. So yes, now we're in orbit, and we are just going to burn right at the Concordia. I was going to try and figure out how to do it smartly, you know, lower my periapsis, and I was like, screw that, I'm tired. So I just burned right at the thing, and we're going to go there. And then I'm going to use one of the landers just to grab this and put it on the spacecraft. Anyway, so yeah, we've got our encounter in a few minutes, and we'll just maneuver in. And after a little bit of drifting, here we are, just slowing down at the Concordia. Beautifully named, of course. Someone did actually give me a cool name for this as well, which I think I'm going to use for the base, because the words spell out tape, which is cool. I like stuff like that, you know, like Territorial Arctic Protection Entente and the Association for Space, for Pioneering and Exploration. But anyway, we're going to get one of these landers off, and we're going to send it on over to the payload, and we're going to grab it and put it on the spacecraft. I don't really know why I did this, because I could have just done it with the second stage, but I think my original plan was to take it one by one, but that didn't happen because I was tired. So yeah, we're just going to decouple that. Use the RCS thrusters, which are now balanced because there's some on one end of it and some on the lander, and we're going to move over to the Concordia. Put it on the nose for now. I'm just going to leave it there for now so that I can rearrange it later, or grab it when I need it, because I'm not always going to need a science payload on the nose of these landers. So yeah, we're just slipping down here. I'm going to get rid of the front RCS drive bit, which was attached to the rocket, and then I'm just going to slip in and dock this rather nicely, as I won't have to do any kind of lateral movement anymore too much. This is in the dark a bit, but hey, the sun rises, so that's fine. I should really check if they've updated the ambient light mod for I think this is 1.1.3. I wonder if I don't know if this will be upgradable to 1.2 given the communications stuff, but we'll find out, I guess. Anyway, so yes, I'm actually going to decouple this before I dock, because I don't actually want to dock the lander on the front. So I'm going to decouple this, watch that dock, and then slow down with this. It docks quite nicely, and then we've just got to throw this on the side of the Concordia, where it belongs. So yes, this is everything we need, except obviously fuel for the Concordia. So yeah, that's pretty good. Anyway, we need to take the second stage back now, though. Oh yeah, and there's a big solar panel I should probably put back on there. We'll do that at some point. So we deorbit, do the deorbit burn, and then we actually, when we're flying back, you can see I get really close to the KSC. Again, I'm getting good at this. And then I'm going to land nice and gently in the foothills behind it. That's where you want to land a rocket with no landing legs, on foothills. That's the safe place. Anyway, another Pulsar Y loaded with the transfer system for the base, I want to say. Yeah. So this is, pretty heavy payload, but because it's the base and the life support module aren't that heavy, it can be launched fully fueled by the beautiful Pulsar Y, the gigantic rocket, the Saturn V of the Kerbal world, except reusable, you're damn right. Although the Saturn V is probably cooler than this. Although they're pretty similar, 5 big engines, although at the top, obviously, the Saturn V had 5 J2s instead of one giant engine. And then obviously the Saturn V also had a third stage with another J2, which was used for going to the moon. Maybe I should build something like that for a big moon mission, which I'm never going to do, because come on, it's episode 50, why aren't you on Duna, goddammit tape? Anyway, but yes, this will go up there and dock, and hopefully we'll be able to land this first stage. I'm actually, I've obviously been doing this quite a long time, so I'm good at kind of timing this so that I can get into orbit and land the first stage, which is, pretty useful. Anyway, this is a fairly simple transfer stage, a bunch of nuclear engines, and obviously I put a bunch of boosters on the side to speed up the exit burn, because you know what I'm like, I hate doing things for a long time. So they're just going to land the first stage on the ocean, and then go back to space, and I think complete the orbital burn, yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think it's mostly in orbit, almost 40 kilometers. It'll get into orbit though. But yeah, I've put a few liquid fuel boosters on the side to provide a little more delta V. Those obviously decouple because I don't need them the whole way. And it also just speeds up the exit burn from Kerbal, which is so useful. Even the Concordia has that built in, even though it's a reusable vehicle, because I'm so lazy. But it also helps, it makes it a little more efficient-ish, sort of, not really. But yeah, here we are, just arriving at the Duna base core, as it's currently called, but will soon be called the something exploration, I've forgotten, but something cool. And yeah, I'm just going to orientate the base towards it, because it's quite hard to maneuver this giant freaking boost stage, so I'm going to just sort of make sure the base is pointing at it so I can limit the amount of maneuvering I have to do. And then, yeah, just kind of decouple the thing and destroy everything because of the weirdness in KSP decoupling. When you have a quad mount and you try and put 4 decouplers on there, it doesn't quite work how you want it to. But eventually I do get this stable using RCS. And then I just need to maneuver it in and then dock to this thingy. Make sure that this is pointed. I'm just using SAS data, as you can see, to point this at the drive stage, and then yeah, just try and gently dock this on. And this is another vehicle completed. I think that's all of the vehicles completed. Yes, indeed it is. So with that completed, we just need to refuel, I think, 2 vehicles, which I'll just do very quickly. And next episode we'll obviously be doing that and sending a probe to Eve, a good one, a really cool one. Definitely something with a lander, and maybe something with a mock-up vehicle to see if I can get off of Eve for a future Eve mission. That could be quite cool. It's not going to be your average Eve probe mission, although it might be. I'm not entirely sure how much time I have. But yeah, and then the episode after that, episode 52, we'll be going to Duna. Yeah, we're finally leaving. Screw this Kerbin planet. Yeah, so we'll be heading off. and it'll be rather glorious. But anyway, this is the end of the episode after landing that second stage. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've put up with all of this building. I know it's been a lot, but my Duna mission can't be small after this many episodes. Anyway guys, this is the end of the episode. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you'd like to go check out some videos, there is the first episode of Empire Total War, in which I am Prussia. Killing Austria will be my goal, so you should definitely go check that out. That'll be a ton of fun. And there is a video I did of subscriber designs. I'm thinking of doing that a bit more, so if you go check out that video, you can see the first subscriber design, and also maybe submit some of your subscriber designs so that I can fly them, or whatever they are, drive them maybe, or I guess most things just fly, unless it's a boat, then it floats. Oh, anyway, and there are also links to my Twitter, Twitch, and Patreon in the description. I am streaming again sometimes, probably again this week. I did stream before, but I didn't upload it because apparently I forgot to hit record, just streamed. That was smart of me. It's almost like this is my job. Anyway, but yes, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been Kerbal with Tape. I will see you next time.